A petite woman walks the dark streets of Denver at night. One hand pulls a red wagon full of miscellaneous goods, food, blankets, clothing. Her other hand holds a cloth used to dab at her right eye that continually sheds tears. The eye itself is missing, scarred from a whip she took as a 5-year-old slave. It's a constant testament to the cruelty of slavery, right there on her face. This woman has seen true oppression and true cruelty because of the color of her skin. If anyone had the right to feel embittered due to the way she had been treated, it would be her. After all, to say she had been hurt was an understatement. But Julia Greeley went the opposite way, showing kindness, mercy, and generosity, even in her own poverty. Julia Greeley reminds me of the poor widow Jesus spoke of in Luke. He looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury, and he saw a poor widow put in 2 copper coins. And he said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, put all the living that she had." Because Julia Greeley was born into slavery in Hannibal, Missouri, we don't have a definitive day of birth for her, but it's estimated to be somewhere around 1840. In 1865, she was set free when the state of Missouri itself outlawed slavery. She traveled to where she could find work: Missouri, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Colorado. And while serving a family in Denver, she became baptized as a Catholic at Sacred Heart Catholic Church. She took to Catholicism like a golden retriever to a tennis ball. Total focus, absolute commitment, and pure joy for everyone in the room. Julia attended Mass every day. She had a special devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, to the Blessed Sacrament, and to the Blessed Virgin Mary. She also had a special place in her heart for St. Francis of Assisi and loved the stories of how he lived his life.
She actually began helping the poor within the community. She is a great person because she took care of the poor. Many of the things that she did were at night, and the reason that they were at night is because she didn't want the poor that she was helping to be embarrassed by the fact that a black woman would be there and would be there to help her.
So despite her poverty, she would collect items like food, firewood, coal, secondhand clothes, and broken toys. She would mend what needed to be mended and would deliver these items to families under the cover of night so that the poor families, many of whom were white, wouldn't feel humiliated or embarrassed by receiving charity from a formerly enslaved black poor woman in broad daylight. We can all learn that kind of humility, myself included. When she learned that a family had no furniture and was sleeping on the bare, freezing floor, she found a mattress, hoisted the entire thing onto her back, and walked down the streets of Denver in the middle of the night to deliver it to their doorstep. Julia once noticed that several young girls wouldn't attend their parish dances because they didn't have any nice dresses to wear. Julia headed out to a wealthier part of town and begged for gently worn party dresses. She mended the dresses and secretly delivered them so they would feel special without anyone knowing where they came from. Despite all this giving, Julia saved up enough money to buy herself a burial plot at the Catholic cemetery west of Denver, Mount Olivet. But when a poor man died with no money and was about to be buried in an unmarked grave, she quietly transferred her plot to him so he could have a dignified resting place. During a parish fundraiser, parishioners that donated money would get a chance to vote for their beauty queen. Julia, an elderly woman with severe arthritis, a damaged eye, and worn-out clothing, thought it would be funny to enter the contest. She campaigned to all her friends around the neighborhood, including the fire stations she often visited, to collect donations and votes. She won, which I absolutely love and think is well deserved. Julia worked doing house cleaning and childcare for a woman named Agnes Urquhart, and I have to be mispronouncing that. Anyway, Agnes had tragically lost an infant baby 13 years earlier and had been told she could have no more children. When Julia saw Agnes grieving, she promised to pray for her, saying there would be, and I quote, a little white angel running around the house. And now, the only known photo we have of Julia Greeley today is her holding that very little white angel, Marjorie Urquhart. Julia loved children and would offer to sit up all night watching babies so that the exhausted or sick mothers could get some sleep. She would repair and mend broken toys that had been discarded and once again deliver them at night like Denver's own Santa Claus. Notice something about these stories. No one was asking her for these things. She knew her community. She knew their needs. And then she went out searching for ways to help those who needed it. This is why she is now known as Denver's Angel of Charity. Julia Greeley died on June 7th, 1918, the Feast of the Sacred Heart. Because she lived in a boarding house, her viewing was at the Loyola Chapel. No one expected this poor former slave to draw a crowd. But a crowd she drew. For 5 hours, people from all walks of life throughout Denver came to pay their respects. The wealthier told stories of her coming to them, begging for clothing, food, and more. The poor told stories of their having a need and those needs being met at their doorstep in the middle of the night. One person spoke of spotting her walking through the streets of Denver with a mattress on her back. For more than 30 years, Julia had observed the needs of her community and worked to meet those needs. It wasn't until her funeral service that the city realized how much she had done for them. I often hear the phrase, hurt people hurt people. But like St. Ambrose said, no one heals himself by wounding another. Servant of God Julia Greeley had been hurt more than most of us can even imagine. But she didn't carry around bitterness. She didn't wallow in self-pity, taking pleasure in when those around her were struggling just because they shared the color of the skin of her cruel captors. Instead, she pulled her little red wagon and from her poverty gave generously. She showed mercy. She showed charity. She followed in the footsteps of Christ. In 2016, a special mass was said that opened the cause for her canonization. She is now considered to be a servant of God. Julia Greeley is not the only woman who has suffered in slavery, but left all bitterness behind for love of Christ. Saint Josephine Bakhita was tortured terribly in her slavery, and she gave thanks because it would eventually lead her to Jesus. You can check out her story here.